everyone. Hello. Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to the ICF Chennai Chapter's mini conference on defining challenging times to grow based on the Global ICW theme. Um, Before we begin, with all your permission, we are disabling video and audio to help save bandwidth for the smooth conduct of this event. Speaking about bandwidth, I would like to add a small disclaimer here. I have been having a bit of bad connection today. So if anything happens or if I freeze midway, kindly bear with me or any of the board members here. Right. And another request that I have of all of you is kindly change your view to speaker view for a better experience of our event now. We're really excited that people have joined us from many parts of the world, and we would be delighted to know your name and where you're coming from. So I request all of you in the call to kindly rename yourselves with your name and your city. If you can just do that right now, we'll be very glad. Thanks. And also let us know in the chat box, how are you feeling today? One word that would describe your mood. Excited. All right. Thrilled. Thank you. Thank you, Haitham. All right. I trust that all of us are charged up, energized, and ready to grow our coaching business after that informative masterclass by Meru on Instagram. So it was really an informative session. Right now, I'm super excited and charged up because, as I mentioned earlier, we're really glad that we have amongst us today, a fine mix of coaches, seasoned coaches, experienced HR and business leaders, and coaching enthusiasts from many parts of the world. So welcome again, everyone, to this leadership keynote. This keynote, I mean, special welcome to Pat, who's the chair of the ICF Global Enterprises Board, and she would be in a conversation with our chapter president, Vijayalakshmi. This keynote is essentially the heart of our chapter's ICW offering. It'll also lay the foundation for something big and exciting that is going to come up in the next few months. More details on that shortly. Now, may I request Arvindan to introduce the speakers for today's keynote. Thank you, folks.
Thank you, Kavita. Once again, welcome you all for this wonderful session we are going to have now. And this session, you will witness Pat Mathews engage in a special interactive conversation hosted by Vijayalakshmi of Chennai Chapter. Together, they will explore and discuss questions related to the theme, Coaching for Growth, Defying Challenges to Grow with Coaching. It is my pleasure to welcome and introduce Pat Mathews, who is a real leader, a superwoman, and she has dedicated herself for last 35 plus years for the development of humanity through her volunteering services, consulting and coaching areas. She is currently as a president of Mathews Associates, a coaching and consulting practice dedicated to supporting leaders. She served on the ICF Global Board of Directors for 5 years and as vice chair in 2016. She is currently chair of ICF Global Enterprise Board. Being herself a registered nurse with master's degree in health administration for her contribution to healthcare sector, community and US nation is immense. She holds a leadership coaching certificate from Georgetown University and has achieved the status of master certified coach from ICF as well. She served as a leader of ICF Virtual Community and chair of ICF Global Credential and Program Accreditation Committee. She is proficient in the use of assessment, including the Leadership Circle 360 and Trimetrics, and is a certified professional behavior analyst and a certified professional values analyst. Pat has actually won 10 national awards for a passionate contribution in service, leadership, and coaching areas. In case you are all feeling the ICF PCC markers, which in the website are helping you, please thank Pat for her work on developing the PCC markers along with the team, for which she received the ICF Global President's Award in 2013 and later inducted into ICF Circle of Distinction in 2019. Once again, welcome Pat for our ICW Chennai Chapter session. We are really honored by your presence. Now, just to introduce to Vijayalakshmi, who is going to actually engage in the conversation. You all know Vijayalakshmi is a passionate president of ICF Chennai Chapter. She is a master coach, mentor, and coaching evangelist. She is an MCC and MP from EMCC, an experienced management consultant, and a certified systemic and team coach. She is the founder of Coach Consult, an integrated coaching and management consulting practice, which is driven by her guiding belief, play at full potential, wherein every individual and entity has the potential to perform at their best. She has 2,900 plus hours of coaching experience, and her specialties include executive leadership, wellness and conflict coaching, working with individuals, teams, and businesses. She is multi-faceted management professional with over 20 years experience in human resources and also a background in law, and is an accredited mediator. Passionate about all things including sports, health, and fitness. She is certified SFG kettlebell and GFM movement instructor. She is a coaching evangelist and a believer in the power of collective and universal collection. In the last 1 year following the COVID-19 pandemic, she has embodied this leading Coaches for You as an impactful pro bono community support initiative of the professional coaching community. So I was really thrilled to really introduce these two powerful women for this discussion, and I just leave the floor to Vijay now.
Thank you, Aravindan. Yeah, so let me just check in with what I am feeling at this point of time. Like everybody did in the chat box. I am feeling very excited. A little bit of the butterflies in the stomach. Simply so because, this is such a momentous occasion at ICW, and we are trying to unpack a topic which has got, I think, great significance. And I'm not sure how much we can do in the 75 minutes ahead of us. That being said, I'm also very grateful to the universe, to the supreme power, for allowing this ICW to even take place. I'm grateful because the last 2 months has been, nothing short of a life-changing experience for many people in the globe, and more so my part of the country. My countrymen and women have come together to do everything they can to tide through this crisis and emerge resilient. We've had many losses, personal, professional, others we know of, which have left us concerned, sad, and also puzzled about what's going on. And yet, through all that, we've been navigating this. My gratitude also to my amazing team here, and I cannot but salute the spirit with which they have come together to make ICW possible in these difficult times, because each of them has gone through very difficult times in their own personal lives, and despite all that, have shown up to make this possible. So big gratitude to everyone here, and to every single coach who's come here today, as well as leaders, coaching enthusiasts, everyone who has taken this time off to come here to immerse yourself in this conversation and would participate as well. So thank you, one, and thank you all. Now, to go back a little bit to this topic, I am a big believer in purpose, and my favorite question, which I was told way back in coach training, was not a great question to ask, but still is why. So there needs to be a why. Why this topic in ICW? Why this topic at all? Why are we taking this up? And so I want to do a little bit of contexting and a little bit of backstory here. Go back to sometime in October, November of last year, when a new team came to carry the leadership of the chapter. We got together and we said, what's the purpose that's going to unite us all? What do we want? And we were talking with a little bit of confidence of having handled the first wave of the pandemic. And so when we got together, did some soul searching, looked into our hearts, looked into our minds, and we said the one thing that really unites us all is our vision. And it was very easy. It was a no-brainer for us. We all wanted to grow. And so every time I share this, our vision was born. Grow. And it's that beautiful sunflower that stands tall in the chapter somewhere there in between. And what do we talk about growing? We're talking about growing coaches, growing coaching, growing the community. And finally, as a result of all this, our chapter, we all went together. And I think as coaches, beyond just our practice, beyond just ensuring that we grow in our own professional lives, I think there is a larger social responsibility of allowing the profession to show up the way it should. And no better time than the last 1 year, where I think we have really taken baby steps, but powerful steps to each show up. And I can talk about that with a lot of pride for the kind of work coaches in the chapter have been doing systemically and also individually. Coming a little bit into these 4 segments of our vision, the one that always guides and propels us ahead, right? The starting point, the first question that needs to be tackled is really grow coaching. And I would think the toughest one of them all, because you're talking about growing a profession. You're talking about growing a helping profession. You're talking about systemic growth. And we, in a chapter with 100 plus coaches, the question always is, how much can we do? But truly the belief is, if each one of us in the profession can do our bit to grow, not just ourselves, but coaching, I think we will be in a far better place. That's right, Johnny, seeding a profession. So it does come with a lot of fear of the unknown, but also huge opportunity. And so we jumped in. And in the last few months, we've been exploring this whole concept of grow coaching. How do we do it? What do we do? Brainstorming, collectively thinking, doing our little bits. And then when we were in the middle of all this inquiry, we actually flipped it around a little bit. And I don't have an animation here. What if you flip the 2 words and put a 4? What it leaves you with is this thing which says coaching for growth. So while we do everything we can to grow coaching, coaching is in itself a huge vehicle of growth. All kinds of growth, internal, external, systemic, individual, economic, name it. And we as coaches, early on in training, get introduced to the grow model and really understand that this is a profession that can truly allow people to be at their very best, personally and professionally, which is nothing but growth. And I want to share a little bit about my own understanding of growth. I think growth is such a primal instinct. When a child is born and come into the world, biological processes and nature demands that we grow. So it's a very organic state to be in. And yet we are looking at to see how professions like coaching can really support this. And that's where this idea came. And we finally said, if at all we've got to pick a theme for ICW, this should be it. And so we got our why. And how perfect to look at it, to defy challenges, which was a topic that ICF had chosen globally. And there came our topic, defying challenging times to grow. And so here we are, going to explore this in detail with none other than a coach leader and really the chair of the ICF Global Enterprise Board, and more importantly, a very evolved coach. So Pat will talk to us wearing many hats, her ICF leadership hat, her own personal hat as a coach, and her human hat. I know Arvindan did a fabulous introduction of Pat, and I don't even know whether he did justice to it because her bio on her website reads a lot more. But when I first met her recently and also read her website, what really struck me was such a grounded, fine, and balanced person to talk to us today. So here we are, Pat. A huge welcome, a big thank you, and Vanakkam, the Chennai style, to be here with us today in this conversation. So I do have questions which I will ask you. But before all that, I'd like you to check in and tell us, how are you feeling today, and what were your thoughts as you came into this session?
Well, thank you. And I would say good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, because as I watched the chat, I can see that people are here from around the world. In fact, I saw one from New Jersey, and I'm speaking to you from New Jersey in the USA right now, where it's about 9:45 in the morning. So I am very excited to be here. And, my thanks go to your chapter for all the work you've done to put this together. I mentioned how you've done a fabulous job promoting it, hence the audience of probably almost 90 people right now from all different places in the world. So it's my pleasure to be here. I want to thank you and your team for inviting me. And I want to thank you for choosing grow and growth as a topic for International Coaching Week. It couldn't be more perfect, I would say. So thank you, and it's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you, Pat. So my first question to you, and I'd invite you to wear all your hats here. What does growth mean to you, Pat? Let's start with the basics as a person, as a leader.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect question to start with, because to me, growth is a mindset as a person versus a fixed mindset of things are the way they are, and I have no choice in the matter. A growth to me means curiosity. It means putting yourself out there. It means accepting challenges and knowing that challenges only make us stronger. So it's for me, I'm a nurse by background. I've had a few different careers, and I've always believed in the power of a professional community to stretch me, to challenge me, to help me grow. And in turn, I've always felt like I should be giving back, and I should be helping growth in whatever, particular position I'm in, whatever volunteer position or job I've been in. I have felt that it goes both ways. I'm challenged to grow myself, and I have a duty to give back, to grow the profession, to grow my position, etc.
Yeah. I can relate to that, Pat, and what struck me was the word challenge. And that allows me to move to my next question. These are crazy times, right? And I don't know what else, a better adjective to describe it, right? These are unprecedented times.
Yeah.
And somewhere we're all struggling, and survival, right, itself is something that we're grappling with in many ways, and not just meaning in terms of life, livelihood, relationships,
Yes.
all of that. So when, in a time like this, when we're thinking survival, is it a bit counterintuitive to be talking about growth? And I have a reason for asking you this, because when we were talking about this, and we were coming together on what is it that we should really focus on in these times, and we said growth, it felt very counterintuitive. So we did find an answer, but I'd like to know what you think about it, Pat.
There's a saying that I have hanging up in my office by a man named Carlos Castaneda, who wrote the Don Juan stories. And his quote is, "We can make ourselves miserable or we can make ourselves strong. The amount of work is the same." And I think that if we look at what we're faced with challenging times, we have a choice about how we face them. And it is, we've, many of us, myself included, have had terrible tragedies in our lives regarding, the virus for sure. And, we can say, we can choose to be in a place of, this is defeating us. This is, terrible and there's no way out of it. Or we can say, how do we choose growth? How do we choose to face this and become stronger in the face of really unprecedented tragedy around the world? So it may seem counterintuitive, but I think that's the power of humanity, to face a crisis like this and to move forward instead of staying stuck, really. So it's a great question for today's times. That's merely my take on it. I'm sure others have, another way to look at it.
So, yeah, I mean, I think that's a great thought, Pat, and great invitation to all the participants on this call. As to your opinion on, is this really counterintuitive, or is this a good step to take, to be thinking growth, and are you able to do it in the present context? Would love to hear for some responses. We'll move along, but I will come back and just check on what you feel about it. Thank you. So Pat, talking about personal examples, would you want to share an example from even your own life, not necessarily at this point of time in the pandemic? And I know I must tell you, 50 years of working experience. You started your career in 1970. I can't even visualize 1970. And yeah, so are there moments where you felt, yes, it's hard, and yet choosing growth, choosing resilience works?
Yeah, well, one of the stories that comes to mind for me is a time when I was asked, I was asked to be in a panel for a company that was choosing coaches for 3 leaders, the CEO and 2 senior vice presidents. And there were, I think, 5 coaches, and we were being, I guess, asked and challenged about what is this thing called coaching. They really didn't know. There were 2 men and 1 woman in that room. And the woman was the most challenging in terms of her questions and her demeanor, really, how she kind of approached us and, what can you do for me? And, what is this thing called coaching? And, is it woo-woo, and et cetera. I'm sure these are things you probably have heard. And so at the end of this, these vice presidents and the CEO were going to choose among us for who would be the coach. And I am thinking to myself about the woman in the room, please don't choose me. Please don't choose me. This is going to be too hard. I don't want to really work with you. I don't feel a, resilience, and I don't feel a connection here. And I'm frankly afraid of what this engagement would be like. Well, what do you think happened? She did choose me. Yeah. And I, of course, could have declined that engagement, right? I could have actually declined it. And so my inner work at that moment was, what do I choose? Do I choose safety, or do I choose growth? And I chose to work with her. She just was an amazing person to work with. And so, I thank myself every day, really, for courage, for the growth mindset versus the safe mindset. So that was one thing that really stands out in my mind. I'm not working with her any longer, but we remain in touch, and she's doing amazing things in the world.
That's a beautiful story, Pat. And what also stood out for me is, I think, the vulnerability you exhibited then, and and also now, I think, in sharing this with everyone. I'm also hearing that as coaches in our own work, we sometimes, don't really go with a growth mindset. And there are our own limiting beliefs and our own, our own boundary conditions that hold us back.
Yes.
So I'll come to that in a bit about coaches and growth mindset and why coaches should be thinking growth. But let's kind of stick to coaching for a little bit more, Pat. So we spoke about with individuals. How about organizations? Because when we work with organizations, especially in executive and leadership coaching practices, the organization is your client, and there is a sponsor, and the organization is also possibly looking at what can this intervention called coaching do. So my question to you is, can coaching as a systemic intervention really drive growth? And I'm being vulnerable here as a coach. I say that to my clients all the time. But sometimes I wonder.
Yeah. I think you're absolutely right that the organization and the system becomes your client. It's not simply the individual. But what is an organization made up of? It's made up of individuals. And so how does coaching become a cultural influence in that organization? And I almost have to say it's one person at a time, right? It's how is leadership, committed to growth, committed to self-examination, self-reflection, change. So I think change, systemic change, has to involve senior leaders. It can also begin from the ground up, but it does need support. Otherwise, growth is hard to maintain. The idea of leaders and managers learning coaching skills, they aren't necessarily professional coaches, but they learn the skills that we as coaches know, and they use them with staff. And it becomes almost like, I guess I would say, the ocean wave, right? Because it moves forward and maybe it recedes a little bit. And then it moves forward and it recedes a little bit. But with sustainability and support from senior leadership, I've seen great things happen in organizations. I've worked in organizations, in every career that I've had. And in fact, that's what led me to coaching. So yes, growth in an organization is a cultural transformation in a way. And coaching can definitely be a big part of that.
Yeah, beautiful metaphor. First of all, I was still stuck and visualizing the metaphor of the ocean. And Pat, I know you've done a lot of work, even in your earlier career, starting with nursing and then healthcare. In a space like healthcare, how's growth viewed, and a hospital and that kind of an ecosystem. And in a space like that, can coaching really support that kind of systemic and organizational growth?
It's a great question that you asked, because I consider healthcare, at least in the United States, as being late to the party embracing coaching. So when I was working in healthcare as a nurse and as an educator, I wasn't, credentialed as a coach. I had no formal training as a coach at first. But later, when I trained as a coach, I recognized that a lot of what I was doing was using coaching skills. When I started to do some coaching work within healthcare, my way in was often in the educational arena. It would be, I would do workshops, I would work with leaders on leadership skills, et cetera. And I would, I guess I would say through the side door, introduce coaching, or I would work as a coach approach, where when I got my formal training and I started to work in other organizations, I think they were further ahead in terms of embracing coaching than healthcare was. Now, I think it has changed. There's more understanding of what coaching is. In healthcare, and again, I'll speak for the US, at first, when I was involved there, people saw coaching as a way to correct bad performance versus to grow leaders and grow your culture. And but now that has shifted dramatically, I would say that has shifted. So can it work in healthcare? Absolutely. I think one of the things we need to give up in organizations is thinking, oh, we're different, or we already do a great job at, you know, whatever it is, XYZ. We're humanitarians in healthcare, so therefore this coaching thing, we already do it. All of those sort of fixed mindsets that people have limit us. And so, you know, once we think we know it and we're good at it and we don't need anything, that's a fixed mindset versus a growth mindset. So, you know, embracing growth and embracing that we don't know everything. And in fact, we're learning every day if we stay curious. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, as you talk, immediately coaching mindset comes in. And I'm actually thinking CC2. For the benefit of non-coaches here, CC2 refers to the ICF's core competencies, the new core competencies, which is about embodies a coaching mindset,
Right.
Which is absolutely invaluable for really showing up as a coach. So sorry about that side note there, but I just couldn't help connecting it. And question going on in my mind is, so how am I embodying a fixed mindset as a coach? But I will reserve that. I know I kind of, you know, we'll keep the coaching bit to the later part of the conversation and focus on coaches for sure. I'm just going to take a short pause here. We are half an hour into the conversation. And Arvindan, are there any interesting questions that are coming up for Pat? Maybe one or two that you can bring up?
Yeah, actually, there have been a lot of I would say expressions of feeling when you both started this topic, but I would like to bring one or two questions here from Madhu, who is actually written, when we refer to safety and growth as two different aspects, do we say the growth will also be fraught with unsafe conditions, and how does one prepare for the same? Or do we just move ahead and learn and become stronger as we keep growing? That seems to be a very interesting question I would like to put across.
So let me.
Yeah. So Pat, yeah. Go on, Pat.
No, go ahead.
No, I wanted to just say I know Madhu here, and he is one of the most resilient business and HR leaders that I know. So thank you, Madhu, for joining this conversation. And Madhu is not a professional coach, but I keep telling him he is ready to jump in at any point of time. He's a natural coach. It's a lovely question there, but all yours, Pat.
Okay, good. So I want to make sure I understand the question. Is it the tension or polarity between safety and growth? Is that what I'm hearing in that question?
Yeah. Exactly. How the mindset should behave that time. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think it's a great question, and I think they are polarities in some ways, right? So true growth may take us out of our safe zone, right? It may challenge us to leave the safe zone, and yet when we're working with other people, or let's say you're in HR, which I hear you are, how do we make it safer for people to be out of their comfort zone? Okay, so so it's a polarity for sure. And yet I think it's a both and. I think there's a way that we work with people that can be both challenging and safe. Yeah. And without the side of safety, there can be fear, and fear is paralyzing. So it's a challenge to create a safe space for people to experiment, for people to challenge themselves, and for people to come out of their, quote, comfort zone and make strides. And once they do, even in a small way, that then empowers a sort of further growth. You know, oh, I made it. I could do this. So what else can I do that I didn't know I could do before?
That's a lovely answer, Pat. And if I can add on, again, going back to core competencies, as you can see, I'm a huge core competency fan. The beautiful shift from trust and intimacy,
yes,
trust and safety, right?
Yes.
So which means in the coaching process itself, as we allow for our clients to go out of their safe zones, yet as coaches, we are offering them that space of safety.
Yes, that's a great illustration. Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you, Pat. Arvindan, one more question before we go back into the conversation.
Yeah, I think, Pat, everybody was very happy when you were very authentic in expressing your first coaching experience when 3 difficult corporate professionals were opposite to you. One of the questions comes where it was a purposeful intimidation people were doing with the coaches, or it was just they were checking whether it was a selection process. That's why people were tough on you. The other question which came to my mind is, why were you judgmental about those coaches? So that came to me naturally when you were a credential coach that time, in case. So
yeah,
just for your thoughts. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. It's really beautiful, right? Of course. So this situation is certainly viewed through my lens, right? We would have to ask the participants what role, if you will, they were playing. My take on it was, yes, it was a bit of grandstanding, right? I think it was a bit of perhaps trying to intimidate, but I also think there was a bit of lack of understanding of what coaching really was. So I think it was a push to, what's in this for me, and for me, was there judgment on my part, I think was your question. You betcha. I was judging all over myself there, and making their questions intimidating in my mind versus perhaps lack of understanding, which I then once I began to coach this woman, I realized she really didn't have any idea what coaching was about. She thought it was a psychological process. She thought it was punitive. And so we had a lot of work to do at the beginning, and on my part as well. So I thank you for that question, because for sure I was very judgmental. Part of it was lack of understanding. Part of it was intimidating for me, frankly. A little fear going on there, and thinking, if I do agree to work with her, oh my gosh, I'm going to be on the hot seat here. And can I take that or not?
Thank you, Pat.
Thanks, Arvindan. So let's move ahead, Pat. And already I'm thinking ICF. We are all volunteer leaders at ICF, and so it's always in the frame of reference, isn't it? So I must tell you, like core competencies, I also feel a passionate connect with ICF Vision. And honestly, our own vision of Grow really flows from there. So yes, making coaching an integral part of a thriving society.
Yes.
How beautiful, right? And I always in my mind compare, and again, you can relate to this.
like medicine. Can you imagine a society without doctors, without medicine? Can you imagine a society even without lawyers, right? While we say we can resolve conflict. So it also always think, how do we give this grand, status and make coaching kind of integrated with the fabric of society?
Yes.
And visions are to be like that, right? Visions need to push you. They need to allow you to grow. It's not easy. A vision is a dream. So coming to the ICF Vision, and you've been so involved with the organization as a volunteer leader for many years now, and now really in this position. How does all of this talk on growth tie in with the ICF Vision? And tell us a little bit about how ICF is really strategically bringing this to life.
Yeah, it's a big question, and there's probably many answers to that, Vijay, as you know, and you're part of this big vision, making sure that coaching is an integral part of a thriving, flourishing society. As many of you know, over the past probably 6 years, I would say, there's been a vision for ICF to become a bigger ecosystem. We've always been a membership organization, and we are a thriving membership organization. That's the backbone of ICF, is our members and our chapters. And yet, if we looked at growth, we were formerly the International Coach Federation, right, which focused on members. And as I said, memberships are the backbone, the members are the backbone. And yet, if we really think of growth of coaching, there's many more aspects to it. And so last year, 2020, was the first year that we launched One ICF, which the Global Enterprise Board is the overseer, really, of One ICF, and there are 6 family organizations. So talk about growth and trying to get a handle on 6 family organizations and what they mean. We've always had the ICF Foundation, which is has the Inspire campaign, which is to bring coaching to societies all over the world. That is one of the family organizations. There's now one for Credentials and Standards, which we were always involved in Credentials and Standards, but now it has its own staffing, its own board. And coach training, we've been involved in coach training, but again, expanding, growing that mission of standardizing coach education and training. We now have a family organization for coaching in organizations. And so, as you pointed out, what is the role of coaching in organizations, and how do we support coaching skills for leaders and managers? There's a Thought Leadership Institute now. And also, of course, the thought leadership is in regard to research and, tapping into thought leaders, both inside and outside the coaching profession, to help us grow. And there's that growth again. And then, of course, the very valuable coach practitioner family organization. So it is growth in 6 family organizations to support coaches and coaching around the world.
Yeah, I mean, I can certainly tell you, if I kind of remove my volunteer leadership hat and, as a member of the membership organization, I can certainly say in the last 2 years, I just feel as a receiver, there's a lot happening, right? In a good way. There's a lot of action. There's a lot of progress. And so what's also striking me from what you say, growth is sometimes not just about depth. It's also about showing up holistically, looking at opportunities, and really trying to see how can we authentically service and serve those opportunities. So for example, something like Thought Leadership Institute, I would think is a great example of that. What do you think about that, Pat? Horizontal versus vertical.
Yeah, so I think when you look at adult development theory, for example, we think of growth as being a horizontal plane. We get better at the things we're already doing. And we think of development as the vertical plane. So that's the sort of the challenge for us to develop differently, to to take on a different lens. And I think the Thought Leadership Institute pushes us to do that, pushes us to look at best practices from, again, inside and outside of our world, and how do we not only build our skills in what we're already doing, but how do we aspire for development in areas that we may not already be involved in, or we may not always be proficient in. We do have an individual and, well, a team at ICF devoted to coaching research, which for many years has been, very little coaching research. And now, we're seeing more. And by the way, for the coaches out there, you can let ICF know that you'd like to be involved in coaching research, and you would get an email when there is a coaching research project going on, inviting you to be part of it. And I get them, I probably get one a week. I'm not always the right demographic for that particular study, but you can pick and choose, So I agree with you. I think that part of our development is again being challenged and asked to expand our thinking.
So that leads me to two questions. One which I have been holding back, and the other one which is a little personal about you. So apart from being a leader and a coach leader, and looking at things strategically and looking at growth, from the time you started, even without a coaching credential, how has your own growth journey been as a coach? What were some of those turning points for you? And especially with mastery, I hear this, that you get an MCC, you come there, and then what? That is always a question, or any other credential, right? I mean, is it just going through credentials and getting somewhere, or how can a coach really look at their own growth journey and challenge themselves?
Yeah, it's I think a wonderful question, because as I've been members of chapters in different areas, every chapter has had the question of how do we engage our MCCs or our more seasoned coaches, not only MCCs, but credentialed coaches who have been in the coaching world for, quite a while. And I think that, by and large, I've heard the seasoned coaches saying, mentoring is one thing. Sure, I can be involved in mentoring. I can, and I'm very involved in assessment and mentoring, and it's good, and it does challenge me. But yet, I think a different challenge for us is to never assume we're at the pinnacle of our knowledge or the pinnacle of our profession. No matter what our credential is, there is always something new to learn. So neuroscience happens to be, for me as a nurse and a coach, very interesting, and an area that I'm learning every day something about that. So I would say, choose something that is challenging to you. I'll share one of my clients, and she is not in the United States. She has taken on 3 things to enrich her life. She's an MCC coach, and she has a challenging job and profession. And here's the 3 things she's taken on for herself. She's learning to play the cello. she is doing yoga and she could do a headstand, which, forgive me, but I cannot. I mean, talk about challenge. It's not anything I've mastered yet. And she's rowing. And these are 3 domains for her that have become both challenges and enriching. And so it doesn't have to be about coaching. How do you challenge yourself? How is there some new growth that you can undertake that that enriches your life, which in turn I think helps us become better coaches and better partners in coaching with our clients, and not only that, with our families and our friends. I have several examples of how I was so grateful to be a coach when challenging times came up in my own family. So I
want to share one of them, Pat, if it's not too personal?
Yeah, no, I will share one that has had a huge impact on my life. I have 2 sons. When the younger one began sailing, and he reached the national championships in the United States, actually. And all he really wanted to do was to go to the Coast Guard Academy, which is quite challenging to get into in the United States. And that was his, he wanted to do that. Academically, he was doing well and so forth. And so he got accepted early admission to the Coast Guard Academy. And you go early in the summer and you have military training, essentially. The second day he was there, they found that he had a particular kind of color blindness, which he never knew. It was a light variant, light, L-I-G-H-T, for red-green lights. And with that variant, you can't be on ships and you can't be a pilot. And so on his 3rd day at the Coast Guard Academy, he was given a medical discharge. And so you can see I'm emotional even talking about it. He was devastated. His whole, focus was to go there. And so he was sent home. He had declined all the other university admissions. And my husband is much more of a, he has a different intensity about things than I do. And I said to my husband, do not pressure him about what's next. Let's just let him process what has happened. And so my question to him as a coach, when he was ready to talk about it, and that took a couple weeks of letting him process. And if I wasn't a coach, I probably would not have done that. My question to him was, you had an early action admission. You knew in December you were admitted there, but you waited till May to make your decision. What part of you made you wait till May? And he said, giving up the freedom, being in a military, organization, military college. And I said, how can you embrace the freedom now? And he went back to one of the universities that he had applied to, and he contacted them, even though it's now July and May is when, you have to accept. And he was admitted to a wonderful university in their honors program. At the end of his first year there, when I went to pick him up, he said, I'm really glad I went to the Coast Guard Academy, because if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have ended up here. And, I think about that experience and my role as a mom and my role as a coach and his growth as an individual through a very painful time, which could have paralyzed him. I was never so thankful to be a coach as in that situation.
Wow, Pat, I think, suddenly I just feel like you've given the message as to why we have all chosen this profession. And thank you, Pat, for sharing such a, an emotionally laden narrative.
Yeah.
But I'm also hearing in that whole thing, you probably grew through it too. As a
Oh,
mother.
yes. Oh, yes.
How beautiful. And that makes me ask you this. As coaches, especially in the last year or so, some of us, in fact, a lot of us, are supporting clients with grief, with loss, challenges, with just feeling, a sense of inertia, right? I mean, I've had clients who've just, the most professional clients who've just canceled sessions for nothing else because, they found it too hard to even show up. Yes. And as coaches, we have our own battles too. We're dealing with our own families and our own loved ones. So how do we, through all this, support others? How do we anchor and ground ourselves that we can offer that safe space and partnership, which is what coaching is all about,
Yes.
with another human being? Because that to me is also at the core of growth.
Right. Well, it really is. And I think it has to do with making the space for ourselves in our own, in our own stories, right? How do we take care of ourselves? Because and going back to the core competency about coaching mindset, right? How do we engage in our own reflective practice? How do we, like my colleague or my client, right, who's doing cello and yoga and whatever, because for us to be in shape to support others, we need to take care of ourselves. And I would say that my experience mirrors yours, Vijay, in a lot of ways. A lot of my clients are exhausted. They're working from home. They're taking care of children at the same time. They're homeschooling or they're encouraging virtual learning. And they're working long into, they're working about 4 jobs, if you really wanted to put it that way, right? And they're working long into the night and not getting enough sleep. And so I think it's self-care. And I think it's also encouraging self-care, which can come last for some of us, very unfortunately. And so I think it's supporting your clients who are canceling sessions and having those I guess, courageous conversations, I would say, about what's getting in the way. And like, we know what's getting in the way, right? It's illness. It's, holding many roles and still trying to do what we did, before. Well, times have changed. So how do we change, and how do we support both ourselves and others? Yeah, at my my coaching school, Georgetown, which I'm still on the faculty there, I was director of that program for a while. The alums have formed a pro bono coaching initiative, I would say, to support healthcare workers, actually, who are in the midst of all of what is called for from them, and providing pro bono coaching for them. So it's difficult. Yeah. So I don't think there's a magic answer, but I think we have to take care of ourselves first, and we have to respect what's going on for others and help them take care of themselves.
Yeah. So self-care and courage are 2 words that stood out for me. Thank you, Fat. I'm feeling, a lot energized myself listening to it. I'm mindful of time, that we are coming into the last segment, and we have something that we would like to talk about as well in your presence. Probably I have one more question to you, which is, again, this is, from a space of vulnerability here and trusting that this is a safe space. I know coaches have, in the last year, economically, professionally, been hit too. The pandemic has not spared anyone. I hear often that businesses have been hit, and because coaches also dabble in a couple of other, I would say, related support that they do. Could be consulting, could be training. There has been a hit. So what's your what would you say, or what would be your powerful questioning to coaches who are going through this?
Yeah. Well, I don't know that there's one powerful question, but coaches on this webinar probably know this, but I will share it anyway, because I do think it's a model that can help us. It's a coaching model, and it's the GROW model, right? John Whitmore's GROW model. Yeah, how about it, right? And so what the GROW stands for, G stands for goal, R stands for realities, which is what I think you're bringing right now. What is the reality of our situation? O stands for options. So given the goal of thriving coaching practice, the realities of the pandemic and businesses cutting back, et cetera, and even individuals who may not have the resources for coaching, what are the options that are available to me? And the W is really, what will you do? That was John Whitmore's model, and others along the way, and I can't name who they are because I think there's more than one, have added the TH to that GROW model, which stands for thrive. So not only what will you do, but how will you maintain it? Okay. So I think if we look at these challenging times through that GROW model, right? What is the goal that we have? What are the realities that are here? And we know many of them very well. Given that, what options are available to us? And so things like becoming part of an initiative like the Georgetown initiative with, pro bono coaching, reaching out to the foundation, seeing how you can be involved with the United Nations goals, sustainability goals, maybe taking on more pro bono clients in an area that might later lead to paid coaching, but for now it helps grow our coaching skills. There are many things that we can look at for options that may not have been available to us before, and engaging in coaching with maybe a shared arrangement with another coach, so that we can do some reflective practice, and it may open our eyes to options we didn't know were available to us. So in tying in with your theme, I wanted to bring in John Whitmore's model, because I think not only is it one model that can be used for coaching, but it's useful for us to think about in these trying times for our own growth and our own looking at a variety of options.
All I can say, Pat, is just love it. Just love what you said, because, to go back personally, John Whitmore was like my first initiation into coaching, doing the book and reading all of that. And it just felt so good to have you bring that back. So I'm also hearing you say, think out of the box. Look at what could, find ways to thrive. And I think each of us has to find our own answers. Thank you, Pat. I know there's lots coming in the chat box. I'm not sure we even have time for another round of questions. But what I do want to move into now, and I think it's just a perfect way to transition, is to just tell everybody, folks, this is just the beginning of the conversation. This is a curtain riser of sorts. We've just scratched the surface, because even in this conversation, I think Pat has touched upon so many aspects of growth for coaches, growth through coaching, growth for coaching, growth for the industry, and, just viewing growth in terms of courage and challenges and reframing. I've got lots to go back and, write in my journal for tonight. But I just want to say that we are going to continue this conversation at much more breadth and in depth very, very soon this year. And it gives me a lot of pride to bring this. And this is our first official announcement that we have an entire 3 days of thought-provoking and creative conversations on just coaching for growth. And ICF India chapters proudly present the ICF India Conclave that is coming up in August this year. And a conclave that is going to be a bold conclave in exploring a topic like this, going beyond, I think, just the conventional use of coaching, but to ask a much larger question and relevant question. How does it help growth? Not just with individual clients, with teams, with organizations and systems as a whole. So coaching for growth in the context of individuals, teams, organizations, and systems. And yes, and I must say there's been a lot of work happening in the last couple of months, despite many challenges and despite many blocks along the way. I think we're in a lovely place to inaugurate and present, if I might say, the logo reveal of this conference, and no better person to do it than somebody who's left me, and I'm sure all of you, inspired about why we should be thinking growth. So Pat, I would request you to do the honors, and whenever you're ready to see the logo, I know it's a surprise for you as well, just give us a thumbs up. And my colleague here, Mahesh, who's been doing a fabulous job with managing the tech for this mini conference, is going to bring that out. So folks, fasten your seat belts and let's await the big coaching conference of the year to see how it goes. Mahesh, over to you.
The big coaching conference of the year. Here we are. We're unveiling it.
Thank you so much, Pat. And I will just take, I can see a lot of yays coming in, yay, and all that. Give us more folks, show us some love, hit the heart button, the claps, all of that. And yes, so let me talk a little bit about this. So this logo, there's a lot of effort and a lot of heart that's gone in, a lot of thought as well. There are different elements to the logo. One, of course, it is the ICF India Conclave, which every year the Indian chapters come together and one chapter hosts it, and ICF Chennai Chapter is going to be the proud host in collaborations with the other 5 chapters in India. It is in August, end of August, so there's plenty of time, but of course, you know, we don't have so much time to just relax and sit back. Lots of work to do. And the topic is, of course, could I go back to the previous slide, please, on the logo, Coaching for Growth. And if you see the use of colors in this logo, it is very representative of the ICF family colors and the design and the styling. And we have this beautiful, prominent upward arrow, which is all about growth, a no-brainer there. Those little icons talk about the touch points of growth in various aspects of society, individuals, teams, organizations, and systems. And that is what stands for the acronym ITOS or ITOS, either way you want to pronounce it. And of course, the usage of this beautiful color, golden orange, is all about prosperity and growth, which is what we hope to unpack in 3 days of this conclave, which will be suited to all global time zones. So we have sessions from 9 o'clock in the morning to 10 o'clock at night, India time, which makes it convenient for friends and colleagues from all over the world to come and attend this. And this is not a coaches only conference. It is for buyers of coaching service. It is for coaching enthusiasts. It is for families. It is for individuals. It is for businesses. So I am so happy and proud to present this to you today. And I'll stop here. Pat, I'd like to know from you, what is your first feel on the logo? And I'd like all our friends here today, all the participants, to please put in the chat box what you do think about this logo. What's the one word that hit you about the logo?
Yeah, so for me, yeah, it was a surprise for me to see the logo. What I love about it is the inclusivity of, you know, what does growth mean across the spectrum of everything, systems, society, individuals. It's not just one area. It's inclusive, and I even love the arrow kind of going up, into, like, my question is what's possible? That's what came up for me. I love it. It's beautiful.
Thank you so much, Pat. Feeling so energized hearing that, and I'm seeing lots of comments coming in, popping in the chat box. Thank you so much, everyone. And this is, again, I love the word inclusivity. We want to make this an inclusive conclave. These are difficult times we are facing in India, but we still want to go ahead. We want to still allow this conclave itself to give us a sense of purpose, for us to come together. So we want, in any way you'd like to get involved, partnerships, sponsorships, volunteering, support, chapter collaborations, just bringing in your energy, enthusiasm, involvement, please reach out to us. There's still a lot of work to be done. There has been a team of about 35 volunteers, chapter leaders who've come in and really made all of this possible in very difficult times. My heartfelt gratitude to everyone, and it's a long list, so I'm not calling out names. We possibly will have another formal launch event to talk more about what all can we expect, the possibilities of this conclave, but please hold on till then. On that note, I know we have about 4 minutes to go, and I'm just going to call Aravindan back here. Aravindan, over to you to just bring closure to this part of our second session, and we do have a third session that he will talk to you about. Before Aravindan goes, Pat, any final closing remarks?
I would just say thank you. I wish that I was a better multitasker in a way, because I would have loved to see all of the comments that were in the chat room. I know there were many, and I couldn't pay attention to that while I was speaking. So I really thank you all for being here. I thank you for having me, the whole team, really. And, I wish you the best healing in India and around the world, actually, and look forward to the conclave.
Thank you, Pat. Aravindan?
Thanks, Vijay. Thanks, Pat. I think it's a wow session, actually. For me also, I think we just the time went away when both of you were talking, actually. And this session, we could see the seasoned coaches conversation, correct? And it was thought-provoking, insightful, it was vulnerable, it was authentic, and it was as if reading a book live, correct? And I want all of you to come on videos now. We can enable the videos for a photo session, Vijay. So that,
yes,
and parallelly, first of all, I thank Pat Mathews for accepting our invite in the short notice and honoring this leadership keynote session very professionally and sharing her powerful thoughts to all of us to grow, all the dimensions of grow, correct? And it came from the very powerful questions from Vijay, as well as the great questions, which made the interactive session very insightful and purposeful. And thanks to all coaches, HR business partners, and the leaders who actually came here, who attended from the global locations and made this session a grand success. So I think there could be one photo session. I think everybody can come on videos now. That will be a memorable moment for us with Pat Mathews and also the logo revealing which happened today. And there's also a CCU link in the chat box posted by Kavita to twice or thrice. You could always go and check the link and get that CCU on your name. So that said, I think once we complete the photo session, we'll exactly talk about the upcoming session, Mahesh.
All right, folks, give us your best smiles and let's here's to growth, to coaching and growth. Thank you, Mahesh. You got both the screenshots. I think there are 2 screens.
Yeah, wonderful.
Yeah, Vijay's done with that.
Yeah, so before we close this session, a quick reminder to all of you about the upcoming session, which will commence at 12
21 hours of Indian time, exactly around 45 minutes from now. And request all of you to register and show your presence. And this topic is Defying Challenges to Grow with Connection and Community, where we have planned a lot of elements to the global coaches to come connect and share their thoughts in identified key topics, which we have in the breakout rooms during, and so that we can always have a smart solutions during this challenging time. On behalf of the Chennai board, I would like to call upon my colleagues of the organizing team, Kavita, Maheshwaran, Krishnan, Priya, and Vijay, who has immensely worked on this ICW 2021 sessions, which has been put together and to all of us. And I really thank their efforts in a very, very challenging times. So thank you all very much. That's it from my side. Bye to all. And we'll soon catch up at around 8:55 p.m. of Indian time. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
And the session
Mahesh,
closes.
could you unmute everyone
you.
so people can say their byes before grabbing, some lunch or dinner or whatever and coming back.
Done, Vijay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Pat.
Thank you,
Thank you
Vijay.
all.
Yeah.
Thank you, Pat.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you, Pat.